During the peace conference, Wilson realized he was kind of on an island of his own. Every one of the other leaders were a heck of a lot more interested in what was good for their country, not good for world peace. So what is he struggling with during his meeting? What aren't they listening to very well? His 14th point. Boy, we are really struggling today, or we're just quiet. Well, what is the 14th point? The League of Nations. So he's trying to push this League of Nations. Why does he want a League of Nations? So we can have world peace, so these countries can get together and talk and not end up in a mess like this. And he found out when he got to the peace conference that the other leaders weren't interested in anything but servicing their own needs. And so he left the peace conference without any League of Nations as part of the deal. And he was very, very disappointed, but he would not give up. And he wanted the United States of America to get back behind this League of Nations idea so it could be reintroduced to these world leaders. So if you come back from Europe and you're disappointed that the leaders didn't have a lot of interest in your League of Nations and you want the United States to back you up and try to get this going again, what would you go to if you're the president to try to get support? Where would you go to get support for this League of Nations you want to push? Where would you go? God, yes, somebody's awake. Congress. So he goes to Congress and he says, you know what? I want the U.S. government to get behind this League of Nations thought. Now, if you're a congressman or congresswoman in your case there, Tatum, what might you do before you decided whether you're going to get behind it? So the president comes to you, you're a congresswoman representing Wyoming, and he wants to have a League of Nations. What might you do to figure out whether you want to get behind that or not? Because what's your job as a congresswoman? To represent who? State of Wyoming. So you'd probably go back to the state of Wyoming and talk to people and say, what do you think about this League of Nations? And if they thought it was a good idea, then probably you would think it was a good idea, and you'd go back to the president and say, yeah, this might be good. The trouble was when these Congress people went back to their constituents, nobody was really that excited about it because they didn't want to get involved in European affairs. We had just lost, how many? 116,000 men killed. Durst House of Learning. I will, about 6 minutes. Yep, okay, thanks. So anyway, these constituents said, geez, what do we want to have a League of Nations for? We just got out of a mess in Europe. We just lost 116,000 men killed in action and 200 and some odd thousand wounded. We don't want to be part of that. So Congress doesn't get behind Wilson on this. Wilson's not willing to give up. So what does Wilson do to try to talk the people of America into getting behind the League of Nations? What's he do next? What would you do if you were him? Congress said, no, my constituents really aren't for that. What would you do next if you weren't going to give up? Who'd you go to next? How about the constituents themselves? How about if you don't get on a train and you travel all over the country and you have speeches and you can't get Congress to back you? Well, let's go see if we can convince the American people. So what Wilson does is he decides to go directly to the people of the United States to try to convince them in joining a League of Nations. He thought it was the right thing to do for the country. So on September 1st of 1919, Wilson boards a special train that's going to carry him across the nation where he's going to talk directly to the American people. So on September 1st of 1919, Wilson decides to go directly to the people of the United States. He gets on a special train that's going to carry him across the country where he's going to give all kinds of speeches. And between September 1st and September 25th, that 24-day period of time, he has already traveled over 100,000 miles and given 40 different speeches. And where he's at on September 25th, he's in Colorado, where he's preparing to give himself a speech. But I mean to tell you, in 24 days, what would it be like to travel 100,000 miles on a train and give 40 speeches? What would your health be like, do you think? You'd be dragging rear end, wouldn't you? If you flew that many miles and gave speeches, it might be difficult. But he's on a train. Well, he gives this speech on September 25th of 1919 in Colorado. As soon as he gets done with the speech, what happens? He collapses because his health is so frail and they have to take him back to Washington, D.C. So on September 25th of 1919, after giving that speech in Colorado, after traveling 100,000 miles and giving 40 other speeches, his health becomes so poor that he collapses and they have to take him back to Washington, D.C. to recover. A week later, on October 2nd, Mrs. Wilson finds her husband, the president, collapsed on the floor of the bathroom in the White House, paralyzed by a stroke. So 1 week later, on October 2nd, Mrs. Wilson finds the president on the bathroom floor of the White House, paralyzed by a stroke. Guess who ran the country basically from then until his term ended? Mrs. Wilson, which really irritated Republicans. He's a Democrat, because a woman's place was in the home, not out in politics. And she was out of her realm, because the first lady that really got out of the hostess routine and into the political scene was Eleanor Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt's wife. So they took this as you're way out of line, lady. Well, she did that. And in the end, what happened to Wilson's League of Nations? Never happened. Unfortunately, it never happened. And we'll talk more about what happens to Wilson later. But he serves out the remainder of his term, and it never happens. Okay? Well, there you go. Make sure you get your notes organized. We will have an open note test tomorrow. There will be 50 answers on that test tomorrow. They will be worth 2 points apiece. They will all be short answer. And then here's the rest of the week. Thursday, I'm going to show you the video on the 1920s. It's about 50 minutes long. That'll be the end of that. And you'll have your biography assignments. Friday, we'll find something else to do. And Monday, we will start our last test material of the year, Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal. How's that sound? Good? All right. All right, Miss Daleabout, you're needed in the office, and I am needed next door. So you guys hang tight. If I'm not back by the time the bell rings, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Maybe I was funny when your dad did the, when your dad at the assembly, he's like, he said art back to me, 20 minutes ago. Went back to the Facebook.
This was a duck kennel.
Oh, this
I did mainly because of the conversations and like
every single day.
I was gonna extend there is something around maturity because like I used to have the same as night. Some of the like the past barely went over there.
Well, honestly, you don't even have to.
Like they weren't able to talk about the mature just read it. But we did like the actual conversation. Or it's like if you're in it for a conversation like I am, you want to stay honest with them. And it's not even that much at all. Sometimes it feels like less, but then you have to
Are you sure about that?
just But I brought up the fact that like usually we take like a month or two to do a book, while they can take up to like 3 months or 3 months.
Yeah, well, we should go on the list.
Yeah. But I like to
Yeah. Hey, Dylan, can you grab mine there?
Which
one's yours? The one that's sitting in the Android.
Last time this class.
Blue one? Yeah.
140.
What's that?
He was talking about how at first he thought he
So what time was
should
that?
What's her break time?
Hour 5
Yeah,
broadcast.
or not necessarily good, but like he
That's
was
definitely
5 years on
It's
it.
raining.
And the fact that you don't like any of
You don't understand that one new math stuff? Kayla, did you? I thought it was easy. The examples, I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy. And the problems in the book were nothing like the examples. Raylan, I don't know, it actually might help me out. I was 72% there. What'd you get on the test, Dan? Does anybody have a baby? 65.
I would have done it today, but I forgot to do a problem. Let's look at it.
No, so the one that was the answer, one the answer was 300, you know? All I had written down was x equals 300, and he took all the points out. I just put numbers in as x until I got 300. I started out like 10. 10 was like way off. So it jumped to 50. 50 is still out, so I have 100. Number was closer, so I went 150. I got closer, I jumped to 200, and then I went to 50, so I got to 300, and it was right on. I was like, x equals 300.
Use photo math.
Yeah, that's what Devin did. Still got he's on like half the back page. Still got 67. Yeah, I still my back turned to it.
I feel like
Right there.
Yeah.
When I get on.
Like other than Aaron, I talked the most and like Liz.
One time we made eye contact, like I looked at Luke's and I looked up. It was so odd. Like,
Have you?
I stopped talking. I thought he was gonna walk over.
He's like, she wanted me. Oh, she wanted to pick the kids out. Wait.
I don't think I was
Like on the first page, I got half a problem.
I'm saying, Kelly kind of just joined us.
For stupid shit.
I'm drowning.
We saw her in the hallway and then she joined us.
Five is so free.
Like on the one of the first, just write ln and then the fraction. I wrote ln on the top and on the bottom.
But you can't go
Same
out.
thing, yeah, it's the same. ln over ln is still 1 ln. So you can watch
But
that.
actually, it wasn't working
Yeah, it's the same deal.
There's a back page of
the thing that
See, I wrote that
she
review
uses to
down.
plate stuff, or we for the gas
Well,
one,
on the
wasn't
back
working
page,
for
I
her
couldn't
class
read
before.
Rudy's handwriting.
So maybe it's not gonna work. But
So I
then
was just trying to
she
write
just
down what I thought.
has- I'm not sure if
And it was like, wait,
So I missed like 2 points on each of those.
Some people really just trying to get into it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, it's actually just getting to a point where there's no up, it's only down. Literally, the one time there's a rainbow, it's like guys.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Did you shoot me yourself in the face?
What? Yeah, I forgot about that.
Don't look pretty on it.
Did I ever see the picture of why I was in basketball?
I'm trying to find that movie U571. I have a little difficulty finding it, but I think I'll find it. Anybody have it? Good chance.
I got fixed in
All right.
We're gonna spend these basketballs.